Okay, on Monday, Apple released its iOS 10.3 software for iPhone, iPad, and iPad Touch. And here to discuss is Zach Hall, editor at 9to5Mac, a website dedicated to all news Apple. Zach, we're happy to have you. What features in this new update are you most excited about?
Hey there, thanks for having me. Yeah, the big thing is Find My AirPods. That's the big headlining feature. And it's something that people have been asking for. It won't help you find AirPods if you're looking for them in stock. Those are still like 6 weeks out, like the last time we talked. But if you have them and you lose them, it is a useful feature because you can hopefully find them again.
Well, how exactly, though, does the Find My AirPods feature work? Does it work a lot like Find My Phone?
It's a little bit misleading because the way Find My iPhone works is it uses the cell phone antenna to locate it on a map. And you can make the phone ring even if it's on silent. With the AirPods, there's no cellular connection. There's no Wi-Fi even. It's just Bluetooth to the iPhone. So you need to have your phone near the AirPods. So if you lose them, you've got to realize pretty quickly or go back to the last place you had them. But people were asking for it. They were saying, like, why isn't this a thing that you can do? And Apple kind of took what was there and made it possible. Basically, it plays a sound whenever you're nearby. Or if you're far away from the AirPods and you go back to where they were last located, you can get close enough to hopefully pair with them again and play a sound to them.
Okay, Zach, so the AirPods interesting because they're obviously wireless, so there's not one wire. So there are two AirPods. One could fall under the bed, one could fall under the table.
Yeah.
They could be in two different places. Can you track both of them separately?
That's a good question. I haven't tested that. I've done a few things. So you can try to ping them like when you're wearing them, and they'll ring in your ears very loudly, and it gets kind of gradually louder as you go. It lets you mute one, so if you find one and you're still looking for the other, that works. But that's a good question. I'll have to try it out and see if you can find them in different places.
Zach, it seems like most of the time when Apple releases a new iOS update, about 24 to 48 hours later, you start hearing about all these glitches, things that are wrong, people saying, hey, I want to go back to an earlier version. Have you heard of any such glitches thus far?
We haven't heard of anything major yet. We do usually hear that within like the first couple of hours, people updating, and then there's the big problem, and then we say, hey, slow down. In this case, we haven't had any problems. People have been saying that they feel like their phones are faster. Maybe. It might just be, it just feels faster. In this case, though, they changed the file system from a really old file system to Apple's file system. And so if you wanted to go back, it would be a problem. You can go back, but you couldn't go back without losing some data. So with that in mind, it was a really big change under the hood, but nothing that you notice just from looking at your iPhone. But luckily, they did a really good job of making sure they tested this really well, and we haven't seen any problems yet.
Okay, so with the file system, I'm thinking of the same message that I get all the time, and I know I'm not alone. You need more storage, you need more data. There's not enough room on your phone. That's the recurring message that I get. So how much data can this clear up, and how much space, I guess, can it free up this new file system?
That's a good point. It does free up a little bit of data, and that's a good thing because a lot of times updates make your phone slower over time as they get older, add new features that takes up more space. In this case, it's the opposite. Instead of being, heavier, it's a little bit lighter on your iPhone. It's not a great big deal. So like if you still had, a 16 gigabyte iPhone, this update doesn't change that. That's still an iPhone that you probably want to upgrade soon because you will run out of space if you take photos and videos. But it does free up a little bit of data on your phone, which is nice. And it's one of those things that's going to have a lot more features in the future, but it's just kind of laying the groundwork for that now.
What are some of the surprising features that you weren't necessarily expecting with this particular update?
There's a lot of small things that we note in our article about the update, but it's just really small changes to like the podcast app, to the Maps app, to the weather app. There's a lot of small things that are just tweaks, and that's kind of the size of the update. It's 10.3. It's the fourth version of iOS 10 that's come out. The next big update we're expecting to see in June at WWDC iOS 11. That's whenever Apple does major changes. So at this point, this is one of those updates that's, it's minor in terms of new features. The file system change is a very big deal in theory, but for users right now, you might not even notice it if you didn't know it was there. But that's why the headlining thing is Find My AirPods. And if you don't have AirPods, then that's even kind of hard to appreciate too.
Yeah.
One quick thing, CarPlay, if you use Apple's CarPlay feature, which works in a lot of new cars and puts your iPhone content on your car screen, there's some nice changes there that people will probably notice.
Okay, so for anyone who doesn't drive a car, what about Siri? Everyone has Siri, right, on their iPhone, and there have been some updates to Siri too. More competitive now with an Amazon Alexa?
It's getting there. So it's hard to compare Siri and Amazon's product, but Siri's been able to work with third-party apps with something called SiriKit. This update specifically mentions being able to do ride booking apps with Siri, which is a new thing. And then Siri on the Apple Watch for the first time is going to be able to work with third-party apps as well, like the iPhone has been able to do for the past few months. So that's a nice change.
That definitely is a nice change. Another, what you say is an important sort of improvement or fix that's happened, is the ability to rent and watch whatever you buy on iTunes movies across all different devices, even though I thought that this was something that was already in place.
Absolutely. When the story came out, first for iTunes last week and then on Monday for iOS, we were like, wait, that wasn't already a thing? But sure enough, that was a limitation. My guess is maybe it had something to do with studio rights. I'm not positive, though. But there are still restrictions in place for renting movies. Like, you've got 30 days to start it, and then I think 24 hours to finish it. But before, it was possible that you could rent a movie on your iPhone and like watch 20 minutes of it and decide you want to finish it on your Apple TV or your Mac or your iPad even, and that wasn't possible. So you had to pay for it again if you wanted to watch it on a different screen. Now it's possible to do what you would expect, which is just rent it and then watch it anywhere within that time frame.
Zach, any letdowns?
Any letdowns? Well, I think people wanted more features. There was a feature on the Apple Watch called Theater Mode that makes your watch not light up when you go to a movie, and it silences it. When that was rumored to be coming, people thought it might be a dark mode, and people really want a dark mode on the iPhone. So maybe in the future, but not quite yet.
Okay, Zach Hall, editor at 9to5Mac, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks.